Welcome to One Breath Wisdom, the podcast for therapists, healers, and soul-led space holders, ready to lead from wholeness, not burnout. I am Lisa McNett, founder of One Breath Institute and co-creator of the One Breath Method. Each week, I will be sharing trauma-informed insight, somatic tools, and real stories from the healing path, sometimes solo, sometimes with our co-founder, Deborah Dickey, and sometimes with special guests walking this path in their own powerful way. Together, we will explore how healing, embodiment, and presence can transform the way we live, lead, and care for others without losing ourselves. Let's take a breath and begin. Hello and welcome to One Breath Wisdom. I am your host, Lisa McNett, and I'm very excited to have a special guest with me, Bree Divine. Bree Larson. Bree Larson is a speaker, educator, and the creator of the 6 Perceptions of Love, a transformational framework born from nearly a decade of studying trust, relationships, healing, and human behavior. Through her work, she helps people to move from confusion to clarity by understanding the patterns that shape how they love, lead, create, and relate to others. Bree, how does it feel to receive your bio read back to you?
Yeah, it feels like, I've done some things with the work that's been thrown at me. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, you have done some things. And just to let everyone know, Bree and I came into connection. We met for the first time less than 2 months ago. Less than 2 months ago, but I have to tell you, I have been a follower of Bree's for a number of years, for at least 5 years, I think, something along those lines. I had stumbled across her work and was curious. Could tell that she was very well spoken, very well educated, and on a path to a path of personal journey, personal transformation, personal healing, taking responsibility for her life, and two, this path to freedom and sovereignty and to learning about all of the things that we just mentioned she learned about. So I was really excited to meet Bree and so happy that we are now, I'll just go ahead and put it out there right now. We are in alignment with her 6 Perceptions of Love. And so I'll share a little bit more about that later. This is about Bree. This is for you to bring in your work. And I'm just wanting everyone to know how excited I am that you are here and how much respect I have for you.
Thank you. Likewise. It's truly an honor to be here with you. And over the last 6 to 8 weeks, however long it's been, it feels like we have known each other so much longer and the trust is real. Thank you.
Yeah. 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 Agreed. Okay. So let's dive into this. I usually start by asking what feels most alive for you to share right now. So we'll just start there.
Okay, beautiful. Oh man, I could start surface level or I could go deep. you know? Okay, quick surface level answer is I know that we are all here to be creators. And with creation comes freedom, but we've been born into a world of limitation. And I believe I'm speaking to an audience where we've all had our own journey of deconstruction, whether we were born into, a certain lifestyle or a religion, or something that felt like the opposite of freedom. And we started to, pull on that thread, like what's going to unravel. And we had to learn to trust ourselves when our reality started to get shaky because the world is asking, do you trust yourself? Let's put that to the test. And so I believe that those of us who are here knowing that we're creators and we're on a path to freedom, we're seeing where the limitations are and maybe the rest of the world is going that way, meaning people are subjecting themselves to a 9 to 5, working at a desk and, living through a paycheck and all the things, but that's what's been told to them. And although it can look like freedom because that's something you can rely on, it's not freedom for the soul because it's limiting your creative power in your creation. And so the most important thing I want creators to know and take away from this message by the end of all of this is that there is a path for you to express your creation with freedom in this world. And there are even boundaries that the system created called United States Code. It's 26 USC 508C1A, where your creation can be expressed, in a protective area um, around religion. So we're going to dive into that, I'm sure, at some point. I don't want to lose any listeners when I talk about religion. If you've deconstructed that, there is something very freeing and empowering in this discussion overall.
Yes, there is. And you know, what came up for me as a question when you were speaking was how can you speak with such certainty that about the fact that we all have the power to be creators, right? And that we all have the power to find this freedom and or to escape from this 9 to 5 that a lot of people find themselves trapped in.
Great question. I mean, I guess at one point in my life, I identified as an empath. I could feel other people's feelings. And I took that on as a challenge for myself to go help people, and be a part of other people's lives to uplift them. But through that, I learned that I actually had to strengthen myself. I had to find my own path and my own truth. And then others would come to me. It would be a magnet situation instead of me seeking to help other people. That's a brutal journey that I'm sure is very relatable here. And so the power, though, of being empathic is seeing that you are not the only one. You're not special in the sense that you're different. You can feel other people's feelings, and that's for a purpose so that you can see, okay, if I can make things right in here with my life and how I perceive God or the power of one, that tells me that if I can do it and I can make my life better through that, then others can as well. So through my self trust, then that initiates trust in other people. And that's how I can speak confidently because I've applied it to my own life and it works.
Yeah, yeah. And you touched on being an empath. And I know that a lot of people who come into our community and that I work with, and that our facilitators through One Breath Institute also work with, may identify as being an empath. And so I appreciate you bringing that piece in. Is there anything more that you would say about your journey or your observations or anything that's coming to you for somebody who is really still strongly identifying as being the empath?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to try not to spend too much time here, but the really special message that came through me, I'm a writer, and through my practice of writing, I realized and healing narcissistic abuse. I was a victim of that, put myself in the survivor lens and tried to make sense of it. And I saw something interesting that empath is almost empathy.
Mm,
Yeah. What's missing, we're missing why. And if you think of this like a formula or an equation, sorry,
yeah,
you need to find why.
sure.
So if you're an empath and you're missing the why, you don't have complete empathy. Because if you did have complete empathy, you would see yourself and other and honor both. But instead, my perspective is as an empath, I was only seeing the reflection given to me, right? I was only seeing the narcissist on the other side, trying to understand them, trying to relate with them, trying to save them. And when I broke free from that, I thought that I freed myself from the abuser, but instead I was redirecting my focus in codependency, trying to co regulate with other people who I thought were lost and needed help. But I was just projecting that I needed to help myself. And so that's the why. You have to find why in this equation. So if you can do that, it's it's the pain, right? Where is that source? How can you address it? And for me, I had my own journey. There was a deep mother wound. There was a deep father wound. There were just so many layers. And so the trick is to not overwhelm yourself thinking that you're never going to be good enough because there's just so much in there. But it's to start where you can. Recognize that there is a pain, recognize that there's a like you're dismissing yourself. Because,
Yeah.
of course, if we're being dismissed by the narcissist, or a mother, it's showing us where we are dismissing ourselves. So find why, you'll have empathy, you'll have it for both. And then that'll echo back to you in this like mirror in eternity, two mirrors facing each other. So that's what I wanted to say about empathy.
Yeah, I love that so much, and I've never heard that before. I might steal that from you.
Go ahead.
I will attribute it back to coming from you. But it's such a simple, a profound but simple way to look at it. Yeah, find the why. And when you brought that in, you brought in also your seeing patterns, formulas. And so I know that the 6 perceptions of love is also very much about patterns. Do you want to dive into start talking about that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 6 perceptions of love, it was not named that originally. I called it something else, can't recall it on the spot. In 2016, I saw a vision of patterns, and I was under the influence of plant medicine at the time. It was not intentional, it was not in ceremony, it was reckless, and I had a what anyone would describe a mental breakdown. And
Mm.
I tried to make sense of these patterns, and the only way that I could get through what I was suffering through was love. And that was the answer, and I would say over and over again, "Love, love," like out out loud. But the takeaway, what the patterns were that took me several years to actually put into form and test on myself, it was really simple. So the patterns reveal that we have an evolution of perception. And in this evolution, we are never alone. We always have a counterpart. And so we start out in phase one, and our counterpart is in the highest phase. So every step you go up, you go to the next closest phase to you, not lower or higher, really is just like the maturity of your evolution. So, an example would be we come into the world as a baby, the natural provider, that's the highest phase, right? That creates you, that creates creation, it's the mother. And so, the whole idea is matriarchal, of course, because mother is the only natural provider that we have. Go into phase two, our counterpart within that is someone who is more like a guide. And anyone who is a parent, I'm sure, can relate. You go from mother providing all the answers to inviting them to ask questions and think for themselves. So that's a natural shift. And then we go inward when we evolve into phase three, when we release dependency, release codependency, and come into independence and see that what I'm experiencing and creating has a lot to do with me and what I am perceiving in the world and what I put out into the world. And then we become a lot more selfish to look at that, like, through teenagers. And it also reflects the decades of our lives. So in the 30 decade, I'm sure a lot of us who have been in our 30s can agree that that's when we started to actually feel more independent, started to kind of like zero in on who we are. Yeah. And then we go through a test of truth. And this is where a lot of people either continue a pattern that was projected onto them by their provider, whether healthy or not, doesn't matter, or they break the pattern by aligning with what their truth is. And it looks like an expression of truth in believing in yourself and believing in the unseen. And oh, I forgot to mention the natural counterpart for three is you see it as an usually non physical guide. It would be a spirit guide or an idea of you, a future version of you. And you see that in your world projected in leaders and friendships or, but they're not people in your immediate circle. They are, however, inspiring you to keep going because there's something really dark about three. You feel this creation, but with creation, there's death. And a lot of people have to lose their identity, leave behind an old identity, which can influence ideas of exiting this world and even suicide. So there's a lot of story that happens with those of us in three where something helped us keep going while we are shedding our old identity and then learned to trust yourself. So the six perceptions of love, what it does is it shows you natural evolution into coming into your own truth so that you can be the fullest expression of your truth and not even without fear. And that's something that I've noticed some teachers say, faith over fear or drop the fear or transcend the fear. But I don't agree with that. Right. When you see the fear, you're exactly, you got to go through it. That's the invitation. Right.
Yeah, I mean, if we could just drop the fear, I mean, wouldn't everybody just drop it and leave it on their mantle? Leave it at right? Like, if only oh, just drop the fear. Yeah, no, you can't, and fear is what holds so many people back from so many different things consistently in life is that fear. And so yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's the indicator that you are either going to the choice is yours, right? With fear, you get to see love because love and fear can coexist. Love is the allowance for all things to exist, including fear. So it's not love or this. Love is always there. It never leaves you. Love is God. It's it's what you choose to anchor into. You can recognize that your nervous system is indicating that there's a feeling of fear, but love is not a feeling. Love is. It's like air. Do you feel air? Maybe when it's blowing on you, that feels really nice and you identify that as air, but that's not air. Only when you feel it as a breeze. Love just always is. And so when you recognize that, oh, you get to feel this fear because love is the allowance of fear in all things, you also still have a choice. You can make a choice that's influenced by love being allowance, space to move and be, or you can be influenced by fear, which is being influenced to retreat and go back to your original patterns that you've been programmed with. And a lot of times that feels like safety when you retreat from fear to go back and then you'll meet yourself there again, which becomes bigger and louder and meaner. And you're like, oh, I thought that I escaped this. And now it's come through with a different mask. It's the same energy in a different form.
yep.
So
Yep.
it's relatable. The six perceptions is so relatable. It happens in nature, it's the hero's journey. But instead of it just being this like expressed fantasy or fairy tale, it actually has markers of when you feel this, it's an indication of this. You can identify what phase you're in. Every phase has certain characteristics. Like we can all agree that when you're an infant, there are different characteristics there as there are when you're in your 30s. So, right? If I were to describe to anybody the feelings and emotions in the day to day of an infant, you'd be like, you're describing an infant. So this is what you do as an infant. Just like with the six perceptions, if you describe what you're feeling and the intensity and what you're observing, you are describing a certain phase that you're in.
Sure.
And with that description, you can go to the book. I have it right here. You can go into the book and be like, okay, I'm feeling this. That tells me that I'm in this phase, which tells me what actions can I take to settle into these indicators, these nerves and the fear that I'm feeling. And then you feel more anchored in your reality. You don't have this idea to escape or retreat.
Yeah, it's a guidebook.
It is a guidebook.
It is a
Mhm.
guidebook. I want to come back because you said a couple things. You used the word God a couple times now. And you also talked about love. You said love is like God. right? You were like, love is not a feeling, it just is. It just is existing, right? Everything exists within love. And you said that about God as well. So I would love if you're willing to go into a little bit more about that, right? Like, because people have different beliefs about what God is, and people have different ideas also about what love is.
Thank you for that invitation because it allows me to invite people to see, like, settle into your perception of where you're at. And that's why it's called the six perceptions of love. If you think of, if you reach the maturest phase, right, of the six perceptions, that would be phase six, then you would have perception of like 360, like a full pie. You know, you can see everything. You can see why people do what they do because you've been there before. That's where the empathy is. And so our perception of God and our perception of love reflects what we've accepted in our experience. So I can have an experience in phase one, that's the dependent phase. And a characteristic of being in dependent phase is I'm dependent. I'm being told what's true. So I accept that as the truth. If I do not expand into phase two is questioning its duality. It's this versus that. It's preference. It's letting go of what was given to me and exploring what else is out there by embodied teachers. But if I don't go out there to get now 20%, right, or whatever, an extra two in that pie, um, I'm shutting off that perspective and I'm staying in one perspective of this is the full truth. And but you are going to be correct because it serves you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the same thing with God. When people say this is God or this is love, you are totally correct because that's where you're standing and that is your perspective. And you're not going to be shown anything that's not within your perspective. However, you're the one that needs to reorient. And when you reorient to a new perspective or a new counterpart, that's how you shift. That's how you have a new orientation is through a different counterpart. When you do that, you're actually not giving up the prior perspective. That's what I think some people fear if they think that they have to disavow a previous belief to join a new one. That that's the thing is when you take the leap, you're like, "Oh, I wish I knew that I was gonna know all this before I took the leap because then I wouldn't be afraid."
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So so exploring that, like, questioning brings you into this new phase, and then you're like, "Oh, I have more." So now you have more capacity for love, which gives you more capacity for information and more capacity for connection with self and other and more empathy. And so I hope that answers the question with love and God. If I need to refine that, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. What I hear you, an important aspect that I hear you saying as well is that everyone's perception is correct. And at the same time, our perception is limited, right? There's always more. There's always more expansion that we can have, but coming to when we're young, we take on the beliefs of others, whatever that might be. That could be you were speaking to mother being the first provider, and ideal situation would be that provider is providing the care and the love and the nurturance that is actually supposed to be happening. However, oftentimes that's not what's happening. But whatever type of care, love, nurturing, providership is happening, we develop beliefs around that and what love is and what love isn't. And in the same way, we are given ideas about what God is, right? By our familial systems. I'm also really appreciating what you're saying is as new information comes in, it doesn't mean that I have to just totally change all my beliefs. It's like an adding to and an integrating and an expanding our own perception and awareness based on all of the pieces that we have.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Where might it fall in the 6
I
degrees
see.
when somebody comes in that is a mirror, is inviting you to see another perspective, a different belief?
Thank you. Okay, so let's say this is a really good self-reflection exercise though. Actually, I would like the listeners audience to be playing along with us because I'm gonna show you what the certain phases are. We're only gonna play with 1, 2, and 3 for now.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say whatever phase you're in, you're coming across something on social media and you notice this is universal, whether you're in 1, 2, or 3, you notice that it's not something you agree with. So your automatic response is going to tell you what phase you're in. And this isn't a broad, you're just in this phase, you're trapped here. It's in this stream of consciousness. We have so many different personalities and fractals. And, the version of you that gets cut off in traffic is not the same version of you that's, teaching in front of people that respect you. Right. And, and the responses that you give will be different. So, what I'm trying to get at is don't be hard on yourself here with this exercise. When you see this, you know you're in phase one if your immediate response is, oh, that's not true because I've been taught otherwise. You immediately dismiss it because there's an authority outside of you that says what the truth is. All right. You're in phase two if you see this and you don't agree, but you're thinking, I'm curious about this. I may have heard this before or I haven't. Let me go and explore it. And when you see it, you have strong feelings one way or the other. Like, oh, now I need this to be a part of my new curriculum, or absolutely not. This is terrible. I can't believe that they believe this.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a phase two. Phase three is you see it, you disagree, you reflect on yourself, and you think, okay, what is this making me feel? I need to make sense of this. And maybe you create something from that. You respond by expressing your belief with it. And it would probably be with neutrality, not saying someone in two wouldn't respond. It would be one way or the other. It would not be with neutrality. But phase three would be an expression of self. You'd probably bring in humor. You would bring in a neutral perspective, offer a perspective that isn't there, and you go about your way. There's some detachment there. So those are really simple characteristics of 1, 2, and 3 where you can check yourself and see where you're at.
I love that. I am going to implement that. Yeah. And I appreciate also just the reminder for everyone because people that I encounter and people who are on their healing journey and becoming facilitators and things, people oftentimes feel like I should I should be more conscious now about like it's supposed to be across the board, right? And so something I there's a quote by Ram Dass that I regularly bring in with our students is that, oh, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because it's never just across the board. We have so many different, I think the language you used was fractals of personality, which I love. So thank you for that. Okay. So let's go into because you have the book, you developed the book, you had the vision, you spent time working with the vision, experimenting with the vision, leaning into the vision. You have a whole book. You created a whole religion around this. And you also help people find more freedom. You started with that in the beginning of like, we are all creators, we all have the ability to naturally create. And so pick up whichever part of that thread you want to dive into first.
Thank you. Yes. So I just want to start out with religion and defining that. Religion to me is how do you align integrity with everything that you do? Like your own integrity in how you operate in everyday life. We know people who are very religious, who I grew up Mormon and I was all in, and when I was not Mormon, I was all out. And when I was all out, it didn't mean that I did all the things I shouldn't have been doing, but but I knew the laws. And so I lived by it. Your religion is your own internal, it follows your own internal laws, your own internal integrity, not just on Sundays, but throughout every interaction, every agreement that you have. And it also, beyond that, separates you from the state. The state recognizes and respects religious practices, but they're going to get you. Some people are like, how do you get away with not paying taxes for your business? Well, first of all, it's not a business, it's a ministry. It's something that I am inviting people to be part of if it aligns with their views and their own personal mission. And so the system sees that and honors that boundary as long as you are living it. And that's why religion is important because it reflects in everything that you do on the internal and external. So there's freedom in that. There's freedom in our own and honoring our own internal guidance system and honoring how you see God and what it is that you create is an expression of your interpretation of God. That's why ministry is so important. And ministry with the six perceptions of love, the six perceptions of love honors whatever phase you're in. And so, as a creator, your ministry with the six perceptions may look different from any other ministry with the six perceptions because the core of this religion is living true to you. So, that's where I see freedom, where you've created something. Because in the very beginning, like you said, I want people to know that as a creator, you have freedom in the system. So if you're feeling resistance to, I don't want to be taxed on my labor, don't, I'm not in alignment with being a tax collector. We go to these farmers markets and you are buying something like a handmade thing and they're saying, oh, it's this much, but this much sales tax. What are you doing? You're being a tax collector. You are being taxed on your creation. Why are you submitting that to the system? So there's sales tax and probably state tax and federal tax. So there's so much that our identity has been attached to that we haven't deconstructed yet. So we are becoming creators that are still embedded into the system, which Six Perceptions reveals to us that if we do not break off, right, one and six being the government system and us being taught that we must do things a certain way, I'm not asking anyone to break the law. I'm asking you to understand, comprehend the law. And then you'll see that law has been written for you to be free. At least here in America, this is a free country, and people might disagree with that. Like, oh, yeah, it's free for them to poison our water and our air and our food. Yeah, actually, yeah. But also, if there's freedom for there to be evil and destruction by these like big providers, there's freedom for you to make a change. And the reason why people are getting shut down, this is just my opinion, is that they are marketing, I've got this like fresh organic, you're using language that's owned by the system. That's why
Sure.
you get shot down. And so knowing that's why it's important to be in an education-based community and with mentors who are living what it is that they're teaching so that you can see that it is actually safe to be yourself and safe to express yourself as a creator while not using the same language that's been embedded into you by your provider in the system. So break free from that, break off of that one, go into two and start learning how you can implement with your preference, and then you go into three, where you are confidently detaching yourself, losing your identity of a dependent in the system, and seeing that you're free with the education that you gathered and trusting yourself that you can put yourself out there in the world. But that's not going to come until you have done, everything in your power to feel safe with what you've learned. There are steps to this. I see a lot of people kind of snap back. You're like, I'm going to go out and be free. And they're like, "No, I don't know, I'm scared."
Yeah. Yeah, and that fear, interesting that fear came up again. While you were talking, I'm thinking about how, we're so indoctrinated from such a young age. Most of us, well, depending on what age we are in, a lot of us grew up in families where both parents were working because that started happening after what World War II, right? So both parents are working or a lot of single family homes and education system, right? The public education system is meant to do certain things. And we're not that's a whole nother conversation that we can go into, but I believe a lot of people are waking up to the education system if they haven't already, particularly new parents. I know in Florida there's so much homeschooling that's happening now, and I think that's pretty universal, but I'm in Florida, so I can only really speak to that. Just because parents can really see how not for the highest good of their child, the most public school systems are at this point. But if you really look at the education systems and you look at what is out there and you look at the government, a lot of people, and I'm just going to bring it back to taxes, which you brought in, because a lot of, billionaires, people with a lot of money are paying very little to no taxes. And people get really angry about that. Understandably so, right? And at the same time, the reason that they're able to do that is because they understand the system. They know the laws that you're speaking about. Those laws are there for you to be a creator and for you to have more freedoms, but most people don't know it. And so there's anger about these things and pushback and protesting and things along those lines over how things are. And that is just not the place to put your energy as a creator and as a person who is really trying to change the system. That is not going to get you anywhere. Coming back to what you're saying, Bree, and something that I say a lot and fully agree with is that you want to change the system, you need to come inside. You need to come into yourself. You need to have your own, evolution of your own personal evolution. And you spoke to religion as being living in your own integrity. And I love that because all of these religions are based upon men at this point.
Yeah.
There's some that bring in goddesses, but not very many.
I know. Just for aesthetic.
But even those men that these religions are based upon did not create the religion. The religion came up around their teachings. If you really look at the teachings of Jesus and the Buddha, and there's more, but those are just the two probably biggest ones that have religions around them these days. They were saying that you are in the image of God, right? To go inside, to know thyself. So they're pointing you towards yourself. They're pointing you to living to knowing who you are and to living in integrity with yourself. So that is respecting the individuality, the uniqueness of each person. And when you look at these systemic uh, indoctrinations or these things that are systemic in society, they're not, they're looking at corporations and as people as property, but not as unique living men and women, people, beings, with their own authority.
Correct. I see that as the religions that we're speaking to, that men have manipulated in their own interpretation to serve them. The thing that they've created is a provider that keeps people in the dependent phase. It doesn't invite them to expand beyond that. That's how the Six Perceptions has helped me deconstruct a lot of things. These patterns help me with recognizing religious deconstruction where needed, government deconstruction where needed, community, and building community and building business, even trusting myself. These patterns fit in with anything that is meant to grow. And when it comes to religion, actually, when it comes to anything with a provider, if a provider needs the dependents in order for them to exist, then that is an inversion of truth because a mother does not need her infant to exist. If a mother does put that responsibility onto her child to be their source of safety and provision of safety and truth, that's an inversion that causes harm onto her offspring. So same thing with religion. If a religion says you must believe in this God or you're gonna go to hell, you must pay your tithe or else you are not gonna be able to enter the temple to with your family and be with them forever in heaven. That is a system provider that is saying, I need you. And that is unhealthy and must be looked at.
Yeah. 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 Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and, and at One Breath Institute and the work that we do, I have heard from more than one of my clients and more than one of my students, like, "Wow, you're the first person who ever told me that I have the power to heal myself, or that I have the power to blah, blah, blah," whatever it is for myself, but that's just the most common one, right? I have the power to heal myself. And 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 that makes me sad. And that's just looking at our society as a whole, as what I was speaking to a little bit. Everything is set up in this way to indoctrinate us to giving our power away. I spoke a little bit about the school system. We spoke a little bit about religion, but it's like going to the doctor. Going. We People are so accustomed to an external authority, and so, first, just knowing that you are the authority of yourself and have the power to become that internal authority to yourself and for yourself. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship with what you may consider to be God or your source, because we all get to have our own individual, personal, unique relationship with that. But it's you have that authority. You are the authority of you. And hearing that, knowing that, sometimes it just meets people's belief systems in ways that is interesting.
Mhm.
I'll just say is interesting. And it's a whole process of, you use the word deconstructing, right? Now you get to deconstruct all of the different places in your life where you can start to see that you have been giving your power away. And that is a process that can be painful, because now you are, with assuming more responsibility for your life, you're recognizing, oh, now sometimes people, I want you to just give yourself grace for those who have found themselves there or are there now or may find yourself there in the future, with like, oh, I wish I had never done that. Why did I put myself in that situation? It's just because we know what we know, right? And coming back, I love the 6 perceptions. It's just like, okay, maybe I was in a phase 1, right? I was in a phase 1. Now I can look at that with more compassion for myself, as opposed to, why didn't I know better? So I really appreciate that about the 6 perceptions, just to bring that back into this little rant that I'm going on.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so important acknowledging, hey, I'm gonna have compassion with myself because going back to the indicators, right? Like what phase am I in, certain characteristics. Every phase has an ebb and flow, and we associate those with feelings, our emotions. Oh, I'm in the flow. Or I'm like, oh, there's an ebb, there's a restriction or constriction. But every phase has their own unique ebb and flow. And when we recognize that, that gives us an understanding of, oh, that's why I was in that phase because I was in that flow. And so there's no shame when you look back. Instead, you get to recognize that, wow, I'm not there anymore. I now have wisdom. It's the same situation, it's just a different perspective. One keeps you in the past, which is can't happen. You can't actually stay in the past. You're actually just kind of like um skipping the vinyl, right? Like you're just like you're not really like you're just not going forward even though there's momentum and that's why you feel so uneasy. And so accepting where you are just allows you to experience the next flow that is naturally evolving because you don't have to do anything to evolve. Just don't resist. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Don't resist. Yeah, just that acceptance. So much power in acceptance. And acceptance doesn't have to mean that you agree with it either, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just acceptance of what is, and now I can move forward with
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
Can we talk about authority?
Please.
Okay. Authority, I love words, seeing what words are inside words, and author is inside of it. And it was once I committed to writing, that's when my perspective started to shift because in my mind, I had all these stories of what really happened, and all of that was true. I was giving myself my own way of processing what the things that happened to me. But if I wasn't writing things down, it's like I was living in a world in the past in my mind, and I was not present for what gifts and lessons were trying to show me that I was entering into. Those were gifts that I was not receiving because I kept my perspective in the past. And so once I wrote all of this down, I had to tell myself I'm not doing it to make sense of others or why they did what they did. I'm doing it to express myself and see my own truth. And then that's your authority. And then you get to create your future, which led me into trust. Is this a good time for me to
Yeah.
get into
Yeah,
trust?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. So I was writing the 6 perceptions like one night and I use it as a storyboard, by the way. We've been over this, Lisa, with storyboard. So I was doing it for myself. It was 2020, it was lockdown, and it was really late at night, like 3:30 in the morning. And just a download came through and it said, your inheritance is in trust, or trust is your inheritance. I'm like, interesting. Didn't quite know what that meant. And then I started learning about government and system, and I started questioning what that meant with my resistance to government and system. And the more I learned from embodied teachers, I had a lot of teachers that were taught me what not to do as well, but every road led me to trust. And I thought that trust was only meant for the wealthy or people who had lawyers. Like you don't want to do those things wrong. You don't want to go into that world doing them wrong. But the more I studied about trust, the more I saw trust is actually that I'm okay with being corrected here, but from what I found, trust is the oldest form of literacy, right? Like you learn to write to protect what's yours. So your family, your clan, you have this land and outsiders need to know what you've claimed. And so that is a trust agreement, a trust document that you have written, and it belongs to your family. It can't be sold without, consent from those in the trust. So and then the system ended up, because people are still cruel to each other, the system decided to have attorneys involved. And so there's an understanding of the law so that the people don't have to have that burdened on them. And so you can outsource that protection for someone to represent you. So, but it's all centered around trust. It began there and it ends there. Everything that we do and we experience is trust. Every story that's told to you, you're receiving that as an implied trust agreement. Everything, your DNA coding, it's a story. It's your lineage, it's your history, it's every thought that you've had. It's who you are. It's the expression of you, but it's documented. Your trust gets to be the same. So if you would like for you to know your power because the system thinks that it owns you, right? So people who have trust, or people who don't have trust, if they pass on, the system assumes your estate and goes through probate. What taxes do you owe? Like, who gets what? And they all are scavengers going through what you've created. None of it belongs to you because you haven't taken your authority to put it into an express trust, which is the truest expression of you. No one can create that for you. No one can create your own trust for you. It's similar to only you can trust yourself. See the parallels with writing and the system and with you and your own authentic expression. So this led me into the importance of trust education, which is what I've been able to create for myself and for my community. And people feel empowered with knowing that, okay, this isn't this big scary thing. It's not untouchable. It's not only for the elite or not only for the wealthy or for people who know law. It's for people who are genuinely getting a grasp of their own authority and learning to how to express it in written form. And you can take that anywhere. You can take it into family ministry, living trust, um, business. You want to convert your business from something taxable to non-taxable. All of this can be expressed through trust and on your own or with others, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I appreciate about you is your ability to take this that does seem like a big, complex, lawyery, scary, inaccessible thing to a lot of people and just put it into such simple terms because yeah, I can understand that and everybody I imagine all of our listeners can very easily understand that and it started with authorship, authority, being your authority means authoring, right? Taking and writing down the story of you, writing down the story of your family, the story of your life. And this is how things were recorded, right? This is how land and deeds come from, these written agreements. And I've seen and experienced and had just people don't understand what happens when somebody passes away, when they don't have things set up correctly with like you said, it gets held up in probate, things get taken away, things get overly taxed, and it's like there's so much tax on tax on tax on tax on tax. Like we're it's another
Mhm.
topic for another day, but I know there are people and so somebody might be listening to this and be like, "It's important to pay taxes." And there are so many taxes, especially if you have a job. You're like there's taxes, there's so many taxes. But I digress. A lot of the money that is even taken in taxes doesn't even touch anything that people think that it's touching. It doesn't serve or support so many people in your life. But wrapping it back in from the tangent, trust being such a more simple and accessible thing that literally anybody can and should be creating to protect yourself and the things that you have created and acquired in everything you have created in your life. You might think like, "Oh, I went and I bought a car because I bought a car." Right? No, you created having that car. It was an extension of your energy and what you chose to put into the world that brought you everything that you have, like it or not. So you are creating everything. And so trust, this document helps to protect everything that you have created. And you brought in just the exclamation point at the end that lawyers and law was brought in to protect trusts. Trusts were there first. And this is so buried from public awareness.
It is. It's because to your point, the public education system and et cetera, what we've been provided all growing up has been to release our own internal authority and be dependent on an external authority. And it looks like, what's certified as truth through the system that we've all been born into. It's part of that deconstructive journey. I honestly, it took me a while, even though I saw myself as, I'm sovereign minded, it took me a really long time to even accept that, oh, trust can be created by anybody. And that's the highest law. That's what's being protected, like what you create. So don't think that you can't create because you don't have a degree or a certification in law or, trust writing, you can start writing your own trust in your own journal. It kind of starts there. And the six perceptions bring it back to that and trust because there is collaboration, it collides. I use the six perceptions, the evolution and the different phases and counterparts that we have into governance within trust. It shows, okay, who is the provider, who's the dependent in this relationship, who's the student and who's the teacher, what's being exchanged. And then there's policy in that, right? And then there's what do you do with policy? Okay, like what's the procedure? And then what is this protecting? So the language in six perceptions mirrors community and responsibilities. And, if you have a family ministry, you're going to probably want to use the six perceptions as a framework for your governance because the dependent, what's their responsibility? When this action is taken, how does that affect a dependent and vice versa, right? Like who gets to be involved? And it's fun. It's community building and it makes sense.
It is fun and it is community building and it does make sense. I can attest to that. So on my journey, One Breath Institute was created as a ministry. It was created as a ministry when we started out, and I've been in this world of inner authority and sovereignty and awareness of certain things to different degrees about the systems that we live in for many years. But as you said, it's hard to find teachers, it's hard to find providers, to use your language and to use an accurate word, who you know that you can trust, and are gonna guide you in the right direction. We found a provider back in 2020, 2021, whenever we started the school, who helped us create our ministry and then like disappeared. And then just disappeared on us. And I appreciated having that done. And at the same time, it's been like, is this correct? Is this correct? Is this accurate? um, and also I mentioned, to our list in the beginning that I've been following you for like 5 years, and there have been times I've been like, why do I keep following this lady? I was enamored with you. I thought, I could tell that you were on this journey you were wise and on this journey. And I'm like, okay, she's learning. I'm cheering you on and I'm like curious about you all of this time. But I don't normally, and Debbie mentioned this to you too. She doesn't normally follow people that long, but I was like, there's something here. There's something here. There's something here. And so that I saw on Bree's Instagram page, something speaking to being able to help people like myself develop and establish our trust in our ministry. And so I was like, oh, maybe you can help me with my paperwork.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe you can. And I have met with other people over the years trying to find the person. And there's a lot of sketchy people out there in this space. And we met to see if it would be a good fit, and we found that our ministry, everything that we have pretty much it all established with One Breath Institute. But our paperwork there were some issues when we went through this process with Bree that she guided us through on sharing our story and looking how it aligns with the six perceptions. We could see the reflection of our stories, both Debbie and myself personally and together as the school, reflected in the patterns of the six perceptions. And we went through the process of, becoming an affiliated, is that the right language? Ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the six perceptions of love. And so now, if you're a student with One Breath Institute, we're going to be having Bree come into the community soon. And there's more to come here. But I just wanted to share that because you helped us. Like I can give that testimonial right here and right now. And I know that you have a few different things. You have the trust community for people on different stages, as well as the level of service that you're able to support us with. So, do you want to just talk a little bit more about
Yes.
those? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that experience and your testimonial. It really means a lot. It's definitely a scary path for people, and when I saw the paperwork too, I was like, "Oh, man, I'm sure that a lot of people who receive this paperwork, um, yeah, are wanting to connect the dots themselves." So if you find yourself there, I don't mind looking at your paperwork. So yeah, the different tiers, my goal is to provide what I was seeking on my journey, starting with, just awakening to what's possible. And this community, there's one that's opening up soon. There may be a wait list started, but it's called the Trust Yourself community. It's, the earliest tier where you can learn just trust basics. We're going to meet regularly, discuss maybe some fears or the blocks that you have around your own self-governance in the system and your faith, and exploring what six perceptions, how that can also assist you through trust. And then there's another tier that's the trust community standard. And this is where we go, deep dive into your own personal governance, whether it's through ministry or living trust. And it's basically a DIY. All of this is creating your own trust DIY. And you get monthly deposits in your library where it's taking you through a gradual lessons so that we don't put the cart before the horse on a lot of this stuff as you enter in. And then there's Trust Community VIP. And this is where you can have your own personal deep dive in PMA, that's Private Membership Association, or ministry. Both of those are non taxable entities. And I show you how to do both. So you don't have to concern yourself with trying to figure out which one is yours and make an investment or anything. Your investment is just being part of the community, and it'll be released to you as you go along. And then there's an option where if you don't want to do the DIY and you don't want to go over several months of, slow drip deposits, then we can work together. It is a larger investment. There's just one of me. That's partly why. And I pour everything. The meetings that we've had, Lisa, I just don't take it lightly. I'm there with your story, and something that I've noticed with trust, if you have um, a structure made for your business, I'm not seeing stories in there. I'm not seeing your origin story. If trust is meant to keep you protected, if you're using this, you're not protecting yourself from the system. That's not, you got to drop that mindset. No one's coming to attack you. The system challenges you in your truth. That's what the system is here for. It mirrors, like, what part of you are you still shaky, and you need to lock that up, as in strengthen, like lock in, strengthen yourself. So what you are really doing, though, within your story, revealing that, is showing the origin of what it is that came through you, that you created. And if someone were to come at you and try to sue you and say you stole our idea, you have this very detailed origin story that expresses, like, this is you and this is your word. And that is something that no one can take from you. And within the trust, you have your registered names and titles of whatever you've registered with the system. Like, this is something that you get really organized with. So yes, working with me, um, we go into, like, very precise detail.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and just to give everybody, like, just a little bit more about that, right? Like, I knew, going back to what I did before, like, there's so much, you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, you just don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
so when I was like, I know we can set up our as a ministry, this makes sense. But in that setting it up, I was handing over my authority to these people as experts to create my paperwork in a certain way. So, moving through my journey, my evolution with the 6 perceptions, right? I evolve, I learn more. So, coming and being met with you helps bring me back to my own inner authority, and working with Bree was a process that unlocked a lot within me. And Bree knows this. Like, it unlocked a lot within me. It is the power of somebody asking you questions that help you go deeper into the origins of your creation. Right? Your experience, and that's your experiences. And what did you learn from your experiences? And who were the teachers that supported you in a positive way? And who were the teachers that you learned through maybe less pleasant experiences, right? And so there's a whole process that unlocks through that. That's priceless. It's priceless. And you move through it at your own pace, right? So you have the community, and it's always lovely being in community too. And I just imagine that the community are just supporting each other in opening up new things about themselves.
Yes, they are. Everyone's on their own journey. They've been studying for X amount of years. So we have some, people on a level of senior, like senior community members and people who just enter in. No matter what level you're at, people are so willing to share their experiences. It's really beautiful. And we've had a shift happen where people are now ready and they're hungry and eager to do personal application with their own, authority, like taking responsibility instead of I'm sure people can relate to this, like, you're learning and you're studying and you just get maxed out on information, then you kinda get frozen. You're like, "I don't know what to do next." Right?
That
But
has happened to me so many times.
yeah, yeah, it's like, and some people say like, "Oh, it's because of, ADHD or analysis paralysis or all these things." No, it's because you haven't been ignited into a space yet to or trusted a space yet to express yourself. Like, come in and express what it is that you're learning. Ask questions. That's a phase 2 thing. Phase 1 is like, yeah, I'm receiving, I'm receiving, I'm receiving, but you have to eventually do something about it. So, yes, in this community, we have weekly Monday morning meetings, and this is where we go over the nitty-gritty details of whatever it is that you're working on. So you can take it as a free Q&A or a free one-on-one meeting with me. First come, first serve, right? You come in with you're like, I'm working on this. Like, can you go into more on governance? Because governance is a lot. I don't really understand what that means. How do I apply it to my ministry or my PMA? There's no question that is um, supposed to be reserved for something with a higher ticket. Like, this is all included because the purpose is for you to be able to take action and to go at your own pace. And yeah, hopefully your contribution there will also relieve yourself of some of that, being frozen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it's not just you either. You have teachers, and you might be adding more teachers as well.
That's correct. So part of the shift is um, just allowing people to step up and become teachers of your own experience. I've met some beautiful people where they're going to be signing on and becoming more active. So I won't be the only teacher in there. And I have someone who I'm really excited about who does estate planning and knows all of the details of that because I actually don't know all the details, everything you need to know about trust. I am not the expert. I bring things into an organized form and an organized structure. But I am not the authority as far as education goes. So I am allowing, there to be enough space for everybody who wants to come in, who I would say a qualified teacher. It's not a strict qualifying, but it's how long have you been doing it? Do you do it for yourself? Do you have any reviews? Because that's important. And then you would have a certain day, time during the week where you can show up in the community and teach what you know and be able to receive connections with others. Usually teachers will get we'll put your, book here, the Calendly one-on-one. And so you build relationships with people and they want to learn more from you. They can book a one-on-one with you. So there's a lot of opportunity in there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, when you were saying that, I kind of daydreamed in a different direction and was thinking about, the Six Perceptions of Love ministry that is also growing in community, and how there's, there's, there's church.
Yes. Yes. You can join us for church if you would like. It's open for everybody. It's via Zoom. And you would go to the sixperceptionsoflove.org or .com. Either one will bring you to the site, and there's a join us. And you do need to register. If, no one's registered, then I'm going to hold my own personal church. But so
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking about that, and I'm thinking about how the ministry, like, just what I see the 6%, we're in alignment, we're affiliated now, and I know you're in communication with others, and I'm just excited for others who are in creation, or who have already created their own ministries, you know, that are seeking to. 'Cause I'll just let you speak to that a little bit. Like, in order to be a ministry 508(c)(1) you must be affiliated with
a religion. Yeah.
which the 6 perceptions of love is. So so I felt like a warm bath. Who else
I
is
love
getting
it. I love
in.
it.
Can have our bathing
Yes.
suits on. It can be,
Mhm.
yeah, it can be like a nice hot spring.
Yes. I love that. I wonder, I would love to know if this is posted somewhere where people can comment. I would love to know how your perspective or feelings or whatever shifted from when you first heard about Six Perceptions of Love being a religion to now.
Yes.
What was that shift? How does it feel now from the initial? To me, it's freeing. It's someone asked me last night. I was at a dinner club where I expressed this and, to meet potential ministries. And they say, "So you created a religion for a loophole?" And I said, "That's not it at all. Religion is what you live, breathe, embody, and it's who religion is just a title that shows like who you are. It's a name tag. It's not a loophole. You own it. The religion doesn't own you, like you own it. It's your own expression. So it just so happens to be that the state recognizes that.
Yeah, and with that, like, the word that came up to me was identity, right? Like, so many people who identify as being Christians, like, that is an identity. And you mentioned, your history of being in Mormonism, like, that is an identity. Being Jewish is an identity. I come from a Jewish lineage, and the belief is, like, that's a bloodline. Like, it's not a religion, it's a bloodline. Is that true or not true? I don't know, but that's the belief, right? In that identity. And so yeah, so what you're saying, am I what is the expression of that identity? Is this really an identity that truly represents me, and that I am representing in a way that feels right, and love feels like a good Why would I not want my religion to be love?
Actually, what I said last night, I followed it up with that. I was like, said, love is universally accepted, I've found. So why not make that the religion? And they were
Yeah,
like, yeah, that's a good point. As long as
yeah,
you are accepting everyone's interpretation of love, then it's a non divisive religion.
yeah. Okay, that let's just take a breath and close out on that.
Yes, I love it.
Okay, so I'll bring back that question that Bree had, especially now that we shared what we did about love. How has your perception of the six perceptions of love as a religion changed from the beginning of this conversation to now? If you're watching this on YouTube, of course, you can comment below. This is on all other streaming platforms. So you can also maybe email Brie.
You can email me. It is team@breedivine.com, and it's spelled BREEDIVINE.com.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Any final words?
Mm. This is something that I say in every expression, and I can't believe I haven't said it this whole time, so I'll end it with this. There is only one truth that matters, and it's the truth of you. Once that is prioritized, then all other truths can exist in harmony.
I love that.
It doesn't put your truth above others. When we put our priority on our truth, dig deep enough, that's how we can honor everyone else's.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Bree's links are below this podcast. And she's found in all the places, all the social medias. If you want to see if you can qualify as a ministry, there's an assessment that is also underneath here.
I'm going to be starting more YouTube, horizontal teaching. So maybe make that your priority to go to my YouTube if you want to learn more. On the other socials, there are a lot of other topics that I talk about, but yeah, YouTube I think is best.
Okay. So we'll make sure we have the link to YouTube below here as well.
Beautiful.
All right.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
listening, everyone. Thank you, Bree.
Thank you so
And
much.
see you soon. Thank you for listening to One Breath Wisdom. If something in today's episode spoke to you, I would love to know it. Send me a message on Instagram at One Breath Institute or at Lisa McNett, and please share the episode with someone else who needs to hear it. Remember, you are not here to carry it all. You are here to come home to yourself one breath at a time. Until next time, take a breath and be well.